We're really happy to have you here with us today, Joe. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm super excited.
Well, why don't we start? Give yourself a little intro.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Joe Biscaha. I'm a real estate advisor with Compass down here in beautiful Miami.
It's so funny to have you here. People probably don't know, but we have a bit of a history. We went to high school together. Neither of us were really on this kind of a track into real estate, and yet here we are, both at Compass and both doing real estate, even though we may be on opposite sides of the country.
Yeah, isn't it funny where life takes you? Like, we were like doing Douglas drama together. We were doing lighting and stage management and theater. And then 10, 11 years later, here we are.
How many years it is. You can't do that. Tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you went from Douglas drama and now you find yourself doing real estate in Miami.
It's been a really fun journey. So I didn't start off in a real estate family, brand new to real estate. But prior to that, I was at Apple. So I worked in technology. I worked at the retail store and then slowly transitioned up to like retail training. And then I was getting sent over all over the place in like the Boca area. So like Boca, West Palm Beach, Wellington. I was doing a lot of like store trainings, training new managers and training new Apple associates. And then I actually got the opportunity and my store leader said, Joe, the Lincoln Road store in Miami Beach is going through a brand new store opening. I think it'd be great for you to move down there. So I made the move from Boca to Lincoln Road, got to move to South Beach and have my cake and eat it too. So I was working on the beach, living on the beach. Amazing, right? I did that for a little bit of time and then I worked for a tech startup and saw that go public. And I've always really had that entrepreneurial itch. I thought, what's better? They went public. I thought it was a great time to transition into doing my own thing and helping people buy and sell down here in South Florida.
Yeah. So you got into real estate in 2019, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started right before the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
So how did the Miami market change from when you first started in real estate till like now?
It's really cool. Like I got in just at the right time, I want to say, to see that pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, it was really like a learning period for me. So what I did is I spent a lot of time like knowing the ins and outs of condo building. Prior to COVID, we saw a ton of inventory on the market. Like there would be 113 months of inventory, if you could even believe that. So much inventory, people's second homes, people just who owned properties. They lived out of seas in Argentina, Brazil. They purchased condos that they never even used, just straight from the developer. So prior to COVID, we saw so much inventory on the market and there were deals out there for buyers, right? You could negotiate something or maybe there was a tenant in place and you could work with them. But now it's so interesting to see the inventory levels like during COVID and then after COVID, and we are still below those pre-pandemic levels when it comes to inventory. So it's been really interesting to see everybody moving down here, the wave between New York City and Miami. It's just been incredible to see.
It's interesting that you mentioned this invest and hold and never be in kind of condo strategy, because we're in a city where that's common as well. We have a lot of kind of shadow inventory in this city where it's not on the market, but we have just vacant property. And a lot of it is new development that hasn't been able to sell as well. Is that something you see all over in Miami, or is it really just a concentration from pre-COVID versus now?
I think that was really like a pre-COVID trend where we saw a lot of the inventory just sitting empty. A lot of the condos in the Brickell and the downtown Miami area, they would sit empty. Or when I say sit empty, they would just be people's second homes. So they would come and spend a couple months out of the year. Now I don't see units that were never occupied per se. Back before COVID, it would be like, oh, the owners never lived here, they've never used it, they never turned on the water. Yeah. But now it's, okay, people are selling their second homes if it's a vacant unit or it's owner occupied or tenant occupied.
What do you think makes Miami an appealing place for someone to relocate to?
Besides the weather.
Right. Other than the obvious, which is the beach.
Here's the thing.
The weather.
Not appealing for me.
Yeah, it does get to that point in summer where you have to like run to the AC. You just like hop from your car to a business or like a restaurant. You're just like hopping from place to place for AC.
But Florida as soon as I could.
Yeah, but what I think is really unique about Miami is that we're such a young city, right? If you really think to when Miami got its popularity, it's really not too long ago, like the 1980s, like Cocaine Cowboys era. And that's really when Miami started to make news. I know Miami has always been in the news, right? There's always been cycles, but I think that we're a super young city and people are realizing that it's not just for retirement and it's not just for a weekend vacation or a trip, but with the whole pandemic and people realizing that they can work from here now, like they can work remote. And just on top of that, it's really exciting to see all the businesses that are opening up. Ken Griffin bringing Citadel down here. Microsoft and Google are leasing office space in the 830 Brickell office tower, which is unheard of. Yeah. When did you ever see two competing tech companies like lease office space in this same type of building? So I think that's what's really driving people, not only the weather, the culture, some political stuff as well, which I'm not going to get into, but I think just all of that and Miami being such a young city, like our signature bridge, like our big arches that are going to lead to Miami Beach, like those are under construction. And that's only a couple years out. So I think it's a really exciting time to move, and the people that are seeing it and seeing the vision are the ones that are moving down here.
Yeah. Where are you seeing a lot of New Yorkers that are our age moving?
My New Yorkers, they absolutely love Brickell.
Yeah.
Love Brickell. They love it. It's like FIDI. They love the hustle and bustle. They love being in the financial district. But then there's also like a group of people who are moving to Miami Beach. And they're moving to South Beach. And I'm not saying like South Beach, Ocean Drive, but they're moving to areas that are like a little bit calmer. And it almost feels like a Central Park vibe, where you can walk to South Beach, you can walk to the hustle and bustle, but then you walk back. And if you're living at the Governor condo, like that's like a very tranquil, there's a lot of greenery, you have Collins Park around you. So I almost get that feeling between Brickell and South Beach.
What do you think is unique that buyers have to take into consideration before buying in Miami compared to other markets? One example I like to give is in New York City, you can't do a real estate transaction without an attorney. I know you guys don't use attorneys down there. So what are the kind of intricacies of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's not like New York where you have to have an attorney and you go through a binder. Our purchase contract, that contract takes you through closing and through escrow. A couple of things to note is that yes, your agent, you can close with a title company that's a little bit less, or you can choose to be represented by an attorney and they have their own fees. Some things for buyers to be aware of are our condo buildings. So right now, if any buyers are looking for a condo building, it's super important that you do a little bit more due diligence than you have in the past. So what I mean by that is working with an agent who can request documents, take a look at financial statements. We have some new condo laws that just went into effect over the last few months. So our condos now need to have fully funded reserves, meaning that they need to have a certain portion of their budget allocated to handling repairs that might come up. And then there's also a milestone inspection that needs to be done every 40 years and 50 years to make sure that the buildings are structurally sound and safe. And then it's also important to work with the agent who knows the condos, because in the future, there might be some assessments coming up. They might go around and say, okay, our building is 50 years old. We had an engineer come out and it needs X dollar of repairs or structural maintenance. And we're going to assess all the owners and split that. So if you don't realize that prior to closing and then you close on your condo, you might be stuck with that bill coming down the line. Whereas what we do with our buyers is we request all the documents from day one. Even if before we go under contract, we try to request those documents just to make sure that everybody can make an informed decision, because the last thing I want to do is have a buyer stuck with an assessment that, we should have known about, but we didn't communicate.
Yeah. We deal with that pretty frequently when it comes to co-ops up here as well.
Yeah.
Luckily, that onus gets pushed onto the attorneys in our process. I'm wondering if you can share a success story or two from working with buyers who've relocated from other parts of the country.
Yeah, definitely. Really exciting. You'll actually like this one because it took place in Coral Springs. I had a buyer from Colorado. He was moving his family, like him, wife, 3 kids. One was a toddler, and then 2 cats, and I think a dog. Yeah, 2 cats and a dog. And we were looking in Miami originally, and then there was a change of jobs, and then we started to look in Coral Springs and in the Wyndham Lakes area.
Yep.
And it was just such a neat interaction because it was all done virtual, all virtual showings, FaceTime. The closing, like I had my title girl drive to the hotel where they were staying the morning of to do closing docs, like, and then scanning everything back same day. They literally on walkthrough move-in day, like they bought the U-Haul truck in, like it was just go. It was one seamless journey. And that's what I try to do. Like I try to make sure there's no surprises, like good or bad. But like on the back end, what my clients didn't see is like all the orchestration, like getting the title girl, getting the loan docs, like making sure everybody spoke to each other, just even like enhanced communication. So that because
with the relationship, it's where they want to do that. That has
right.
to happen before the process.
Right. Yeah. So I made sure to use like all my trusted partners because I didn't want there to be any surprises, because I knew, I was like, okay, they're coming with the U-Haul like on this day. Like it needs to be perfect. Like we can't have any delays with docs or loans, or agents are sometimes funny, like getting keys. So I made sure that we were already getting the keys ahead of time, no surprises. And it was a really smooth move for them.
Yeah. I think that's a great story because it shows how there's a challenge to developing trust with buyers, even when you're in person, because they're trusting you with a huge emotional, financial, lifestyle decision.
Yeah.
And to be able to establish that relationship through video, it speaks to the professionalism you bring to it. So I think that's a great story. Thanks for sharing it.
Thanks. Yeah.
I want to kind of shift gears a little bit because you mentioned your tech background, and now we're both at Compass. And I know this isn't your first real estate brokerage either. So I'm wondering, for somebody who comes from a tech background, if you could talk a little bit about why Compass.
But yeah, my phone, of course. I get really excited from technology, like things that help us do our jobs better. Compass has always been on my mind. What I like about Compass is that they don't just accept everybody. So like when I first started in real estate, I did look into Compass. There was a certain qualification that they required with years of experience and your volume and your sales, right? They don't just want to accept people who do one deal a year. You know, what that did for me is it inspired me a little bit more to make sure that I was serious about this, get my business in line, really spend my first couple years in the business, so making sure that I felt really good about what I provide and the education to my customers, and that I knew how to do the transaction. And then from there, joining Compass, I was blown away with the tech. Right? Like we're being able, and my clients don't realize this, but like just being able to do everything end to end on the platform, like from when they contact me, it automatically goes in the system, and then I'm able to set them up on search alerts, and we're commenting, and we're really collaborating back and forth. It's not like an email or a text thread that gets lost. It's like everything is in the system, and then from there I can click one button, I can write an offer. Clients don't realize like how much better and seamless and faster their experience will be working with a Compass agent versus just a regular agent who has multiple, because I've been there, like I've been the pre-Compass, and you have multiple systems, you have multiple screens, multiple logins. Now with Compass, I have one login, I log into everything, I have one tab open, and I can do everything for my clients in less time, faster, and better for them.
And it frees up your ability to give each client more dedicated time of yours, right? More space in your brain, because you're not worried about, oh no, did I put that thing into this system or did I not put it into this one? So we've been at Compass. Aaron came to Compass in 2016. He left and came back. I've been at Compass since 2018, and it's just the transition of the tech over the years that we've been here has been insane to see. But I love hearing that from somebody who has this tech background, that you like it the way we do.
I want to talk new development because I know you are a big fan of new development. You do a lot of research on it. You know what's going on. What are your favorite new projects? What are you most excited about? And tell us everything about them.
I love Miami new development. I love pre-construction. It's such an exciting thing that was because, you know, I'm really big on condos. Like that's what I pretty much sell. A lot of condos, single family as well, but like condos are really my bread and butter. That's just the inventory that we have down here in the urban core where I mostly work. New development is great because what's better than buying at today's price and holding on to it and getting that friends and family discount because you're one of the first with the builders, holding on to it, holding on to something that's great and then getting that appreciation in 2 or 3 or 4 years. Carlos Rosso, one of the developers, said, you know, what's better than buying something at today's price and then getting that appreciation. So I think new construction is amazing. And right now we've seen a pivot in what the projects are being built for. So a lot of the time, new construction, it was only for an owner occupied and you can only live there for 1 year or rent it out on a 1-year lease. But now a lot of the new construction buildings are offering, well, first of all, they're being built for a short-term rental aspect. So the lobbies are being built larger. They're building more elevators because they know that people are getting food deliveries, Uber Eats, their deliveries, housekeeping staff is coming and going. Like a lot of our condo inventory isn't built for such a transient nature, but now they are being built for that. And what's better than having a place in Miami and you can just go on your app and you can pick and choose when you want to stay there and publish it and rent it on Airbnb when you're away. So I think new construction in Miami is really exciting right now. Again, from a pricing standpoint, if you can afford the cash deposits and the deposit structure, I think new construction is the way to go all day long.
What are prices looking like for 1-bedrooms in new construction in Miami?
Yeah, a 1-bedroom, my client just secured a 1-bedroom unit at 600 Miami World Center, and we are under contract under $500K, if you can even believe that.
Okay, cool.
So there are some deals to really be had.
I think so. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a deal, right? Because like they're waiting for it. But once they move into it in two years, once it's done, it's going to really feel like a deal, especially I know nobody has a crystal ball, but just everything that we're seeing in Miami and in the urban core and downtown, I know there's going to be appreciation.
Have you seen, do you happen to know like an increase for the past couple of years, percentage increase you've seen on sale prices?
Yeah, so that same unit, so I'm working with an awesome buyer who has purchased a Miami World Center with me this year. And then 2 years ago, he purchased a project called District 225. And that was the first Airbnb building to partner with Airbnb. So like they got the trademark for Airbnb, they got the logo and everything. So they're like co-branding. And that same unit we went under contract for $410,000, a 1-bed in the downtown urban core. So within a 2-year period, we saw
almost $100,000. Yeah,
almost. Yeah. So I think that trend is going to continue. I don't see a housing crash anytime soon, like some people are saying.
Not with these inventory levels.
Yeah. With people relocating to Florida and Miami, a lot of people I feel like are a little worried about climate change and rising sea levels and stuff. How do you like assuage people's anxieties about that, especially people who are not familiar with Miami and not familiar with Florida in general? What do you say to them to comfort them?
Yeah, I tell them that there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say to convince you to move or not. I'm an advisor at the end of the day. I'm not a salesperson, so I can't sweet talk you. I can't do a little dance around climate change. It's a real thing. But I can tell you it's something that's on everyone's mind, right? The city of Miami Beach has done a tremendous job installing water pumps. They've raised a lot of the streets about 3 or 4 feet because of the flooding. And then those clients who are really on the fence, I introduce them to experts. So I introduce them to people like professors at the University of Miami, for example. If we do really have a buyer who has fears of climate change, partnering them with the right people to maybe explain to them a little bit more about how the city is responding to it. The city has a master plan. They're putting millions and millions of dollars into it. Again, if that's really a concern, maybe we don't look in Miami Beach, because that is a flood area according to FEMA. And some of the areas on the coast, like that is a flood area. It's a government flood area. It's not something that we choose or the homeowners choose. FEMA has declared it as a flood area, and we can look outside those areas.
Yeah. So when you live in Miami, Miami is like a vacation destination. So when you live there, where do you go vacation? Where do most people go? Like in New York City, we have the Hamptons, we have Cape Cod that people go to. Poconos, the Catskills? Like, where do people go in Florida?
I don't want to say it on the live because I feel like I'm going to ruin it, but we have the
Okay,
Keys,
only
right?
2 people watching right now.
Yeah. No, we have the Florida Keys. So just an hour outside of Miami, you can go south down to the Florida Keys. It's definitely a change of scenery, change of vibe, everything like that. But then there's this little beach town up in the Panhandle called 30A with like white sand beaches, and it doesn't even feel like you're in Florida. And there's like just super great $1 million houses. It's definitely like a high scale, almost like the southern version. I'm not going to say the southern version of the Hamptons, that Hampton feel, like that coastal town feeling in the Panhandle. 30A, I think those between the Keys down south and 30A up top, you can't go wrong.
Okay. I guess one last question for you. What's a big misconception people have about Miami that you'd want to correct?
A big misconception people have about Miami is that it's only for like retirees, or it's only for like people on vacation, or it's a sunny place for shady people. We get that vibe sometimes. But, and you need to speak Spanish, right? Like, that's what I was told. Like, oh, I don't speak Spanish, I can't move to Miami. But no, it's so much more than that. Like, first of all, you have all these different cultures just in a little square mile. Like, Brazilians, Venezuelans, Colombians, Canadians, like America, like you have so much culture in this one area. So like to see people interact and just to see like people's day-to-day interactions, it's really cool. You don't have to speak Spanish. You can get by with Spanglish. Everybody talks Spanglish. The thing is, I can understand Spanish. I just can't speak it. Yeah. Like, I guess the culture shock was when I moved to South Beach and I worked at Apple. My first week at Apple, I like had dreams in Spanish because that's all I heard, and all people would talk to me in Spanish. Like, I started dreaming in Spanish, and like I had a dream that I spoke Spanish and I was like so fluent. It's really funny. But no, I would say if you're thinking that it's just a retirement town, or you have to speak Spanish, or there's like a bunch of weird people, the Florida man, I would say actually try it out. Like, book an Airbnb for 30 days, come down here, work remote, and see if you like it. And if you don't, that's okay. You know, you can come and visit. But a lot of people, once they do the Airbnb for 2 weeks, they're like, okay, I'm gonna move here. They find their neighborhood. They're like, okay, Wynwood is like a Bushwick, or it's like the Mission District in San Francisco. Like, people start to associate the neighborhoods that they know to Miami neighborhoods, and I think that helps them out.
This has been great, Joe. Thanks so much for taking the time and doing this with us. Why don't you plug yourself one more time, mention any cool new listings you have, and we'll sign off.
Yeah, definitely. I have this gorgeous short-term rental available for a 6-month rent on 3040 Lucaya Street in Coconut Grove area. It's gorgeous, multi-level, has a pool, hot tub, completely furnished. This is the perfect property if you're trying to get away and you want your summer house in Miami. You want to live in the Grove, you want to live at Lucaya Street. So send me a message for more info. And then you can always find me on social media, Joe Sells Miami. Just type it into Google and you'll find me.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
I'm Aaron.
We're the Aaron and Geoff team at Compass, your Bronx residential real estate experts. This has been the relocation rundown.
That's not what it's called.
This is the relocation rundown. Maybe next week I'll know what it's called. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Have a good weekend.